And today, we are coming together to have a conversation with Paul Van Hippel. He is going to shed some light on this very imperative subject, and we are so honored to have him here with us. Dr. Paul Van Hippel is a professor at the University of Texas, Austin. He's known for his work on summer learning, summer weight gain, research design, meta science, and missing data. Paul has prepared a very insightful presentation on the opportunity of summer to accelerate reading achievement, and I am super eager to jump right in. So without further ado, I am going to introduce you to Paul Van Hippel and encourage you all to take over from here, and we'll jump right in. Hi, Paul.
Thank you for having me. I really enjoy talking to district leaders because this has much greater impact than publishing in peer-reviewed journals for my colleagues. I've been writing for a broader audience since about 2019, and this is really a great opportunity to share with you some of what I've learned over the last few years, and hopefully that'll affect how you think about summer learning. I actually gave a presentation about a month ago for Just Right Readers where I reviewed some of the evidence on summer learning loss, and I've become more optimistic on the question of summer learning loss. I think a lot of us look forward to summer with a certain amount of dread about how much students are going to forget. And if you read some of the literature, you might get the impression that kids are going to lose 2 to 3 months of knowledge over the summer, almost no matter what you do, or unless you intervene in the summer. Intervening in the summer is important. It's not the only thing you can do to reduce summer learning loss. And I just want to share with you the kind of mixed nature of the evidence on summer learning loss. Here are scores on 3 different tests that were given in the 2010s. One you might be familiar with, probably 2 out of these 3 tests. One is the vendor test developed by NWEA, the MAP tests. And you can see that on the MAP test, you tend to see steep summer losses, especially in the summer after first grade. So just to clarify what we're looking at here, these are the grades from kindergarten, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 through 6th grade. And we have both the school year and the summer. There are tests given at the beginning and end of the school year, and therefore we can see how much kids gain during the school year and how much they lose during the summer. And the summer losses look pretty scary, especially after first grade. It turns out that NWA withdrew audio support after first grade, so this is not as bad as it looks. But even if you don't look at that, you see steep losses just about every summer. On the Renaissance test, though, the losses don't look as bad. And on the Eccles K tests, they don't really look like losses at all. It looks like kids go sideways over the summer. No summer learning loss at all. And so there are a number of reasons for this, which I discussed in the other presentation. But what I want you to take away from this today is the idea that summer learning loss may be somewhat negotiable. It's not inevitable that on every test you'll see steep losses, and there may be some things you can do to prevent it. So one point I want to make is that forgetting is actually normal. I realize this every day when I leave the pool in the morning and try to remember where I parked my car, or when I come in to teach a class that I teach once a week and have to review beforehand my students' names and faces. We're forgetting all the time. And the reason we're not so aware of it is that we're also relearning all the time. And sort of the relearning tends to ideally cancel out the forgetting. And this is what we see with kids during the school year. They are forgetting things. If you test kids on something that you taught them in January, if you test them in April and there's been no review in between, you'll see that they're forgetting, but they're taking in new information, developing new skills faster. So I think of it as being like a kid climbing a sand dune. Every time he or she sticks their foot in the sand, it slips a little back, but overall they can make upward progress. This is what happens during the school year. And what happens during the summer is you don't have as much coming in typically, and so the forgetting becomes more obvious. So if you just practice a little bit in the spring and don't take certain steps to make the knowledge stick and don't practice further in the summer, then you do tend to see fairly steep summer forgetting. So the issue with summer is that it's long and that the forgetting is visible because it's not being canceled out by new learning. The other thing is we don't forget everything at an equal rate. If you look at the very old literature on summer learning loss, you can see that some of these studies go back to the early 1900s. I don't put as much weight on these studies as I put on more recent studies, but they did some clever things in the early research where they actually looked at different knowledge domains. It turns out that kids, that some skills showed greater summer losses than others. So if you look here on the left, I hope you can see my arrow. You see that almost that every one of 17 studies showed that kids forgot how to compute things in math. But about half the studies showed that they forgot math concepts and half showed that they gained math concepts. So they seem to retain the concepts pretty well because the concepts are meaningful if they're well taught and they really understand them, but the actual details of how to do the calculations are lost. And I can vouch for this. I mean, I still understand very well what a quadratic is, but when my child was working on factoring quadratics the other day, I did not recognize the recipe they were using and really had to look it up how to actually do the computational details. Likewise, calculus, I still use calculus. I understand conceptually what a derivative and an integral are, but can I solve all the derivatives and integrals that I could solve when I was in high school? I'm sure not. So the concepts stick longer than the computational details. And the same thing is true with language skills. So reading comprehension seems to stick pretty well. 10 studies showed reading comprehension gains over the summer. 7 showed reading comprehension losses. Comprehension is meaningful to people, but spelling fell off a cliff. 11 out of 11 studies showed kids losing spelling skills over the summer. It's just as steep drops as they are for math computation. And this is important for what we're talking about today because spelling is the flip side of decoding, right? Spelling is translating sounds into letters and decoding is translating letters into sounds. So if kids forget spelling over the summer, if they don't practice it, I would bet that they also forget decoding. So how do we hold off summer forgetting? Until recently, I thought about summer forgetting as being first something that inevitably happened, and then maybe something that you could only solve by intervening in the summer. I still think summer interventions are important, and we'll talk about those, but I think there are also things you can do in the spring now to ensure that reading skills stick a little better through the summer. So one thing that you can do is that practice is really important. If you have kids read a little bit, then they'll forget relatively quickly. If you have them read more, then not only will they leave school at the end of the spring with a greater knowledge base, but that knowledge will fade more slowly over the summer. So practice is really important. The more often you get kids to read and to practice their decoding skills, the better off they'll be and the less they're likely to forget over the summer. But not all practice is equal. Practice is more effective, and this has been known for more than 100 years, when it's spaced out. So unfortunately, a lot of the incentives in education today are focused on the year-end test, and it's tempting to have kids cram before the test. And cramming can be an effective strategy for passing a test, but if that's how the skills and knowledge were accumulated, they're going to fade relatively quickly. Whereas if you take an equal amount of practice and you space it out more widely, a little now, a little later, then the skills tend to fade more slowly. So spacing is really important. A more recently discovered effect is the interleaving effect, and it's related to the variation effect. If you have, let's say, 2 books, this is really too few, but if you have 2 books and you have a student read one and then read it again, and then read a different book, and then read it again, that second reading is likely to impress you. The student is going to seem to become more fluent, but I can tell you, having been one of these kids who couldn't read as well as people thought I could, that second reading, it's partly memorization. Kids, when they read the book the second time, the book that they just read, they're partly reading and they're partly just repeating what they remember from the first reading. So these kind of older phonics methods like Orton-Gillingham, which encourage repeated reading of the same book until it's fluent, that fluency can be a bit of an illusion. And it can, if it's illusory, then it's going to fade more quickly than you'd expect it to. Whereas if instead what you do is interleave, you have them read the blue book, then the green book, then back to the blue book, then back to the green book, that kind of interleaving tends to lead to slower fade out of knowledge. And if you have more than 2 books, If you have more than a blue book and a green book, but also a yellow book and a purple book, then that variation, if they're all at the same reading level, the variety actually builds skills that are going to be more robust and lasting than if you just have them read the same text or two over and over again. And on the next slide, I understand this has influenced the way that Just Right Readers thinks about its offerings, and so I'd like to turn this over to a representative of Just Right Readers to talk about the principle of variety and how it's incorporated into their offerings.
I love that. I think this is, oh, hey, there's Sarah. I'm super excited that Sarah is here to join us. Before she jumps into this, let me introduce Sarah Rich. She is the CEO and visionary founder of this amazing company, Just Right Reader. Sarah, I'm going to let you handle this slide because I know you're going to do amazing.
Paul, you've got one of my favorite topics, summer reading. And it's a big part of why we developed the product that we did, was because kids fall backwards in the summer. And as a past principal, I was like, we did it. We got kids on grade level. Now what am I going to do? I'm going to send them all home over the summer and they're not going to read. They're kind of going to move backwards. So you presented to us, I don't know if you remember this, 2 years ago on summer reading, and you told us how important it is to have kids reading with variety and reading multiple books in different ways and engagement. And you also said the practice about spelling, which really is like decoding. So we went back actually and redesigned our product based on what you said. To make sure that we had on the back high five reading, so that every time kids read it, they color it in. Every time we work with school districts, we tell them kids should move through and read one to the other. And we added in 10 books to our take home packs to start adding in that variety. Because what your point is, I think, is the more variety of kids have of the different books they have, then the choice allows them to read multiple different books within the reading level they need to. Am I right to say that?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's a greater chance that they're really going to like one of the books, and then actually reading many books at the same level will develop those level skills more readily and more lastingly than just reading one or two books.
I love it. All right, we'll keep going. Variety is it. We did it. We listened to everything you tell us, Paul. We're trying to base all of our decisions in research, and we're really lucky to have you to learn from.
Thanks. That's gratifying to hear. So I'll just talk about how to approach. We're getting down to the last 2 months or so, maybe 2.5 months, depending on where you are, of the school year. And I'd just like to give us a little advice into how to prevent summer learning loss with what you do in spring. So the more you have your kids practice reading, the more they're going to retain over the summer, particularly if the practice is spaced out. So spacing and interleaving go together. So you can see that the blue book here, or the blue skill, is being spaced out, and the green skill is also being spaced out because they're being interleaved. And the more variety you can introduce, the more transferable, robust, and lasting these skills will be. So resist, if there is a temptation, resist the temptation to just cram before the year-end test, and really practice space, and really give kids lots of opportunities to practice their reading skills in a spaced, interleave, and varied way. Ideally, that will get them to a point where they're actually enjoying so much, reading so much, that they naturally continue it into summer. So you'll have less loss in summer this way. Here I've drawn it as though the kids are not going to continue reading in summer, but they really ought to. I think the transition into summer is really challenging. I know I was swimming every day in November and December. We're lucky here in Texas to have outdoor pools, but then we started to have some freezes and storms, and I lost the habit over January. It's amazing how easy it is to lose a habit. And I think the transition from spring to summer is equally challenging for kids. So if you can maintain some continuity where kids have a daily reading habit during spring and they continue that into summer, then that will give them a habit that they're preserving, and they can continue reading in summer, particularly if they've gotten to a point where they're enjoying reading and they like the texts that are in front of them, they're engaging, they can see themselves in them, if they continue reading in summer in a way that's varied, where they interleave different books, where they space their reading out, then you're going to see less forgetting over summer, because just as during the school year, the continued practice cancels out the forgetting that inevitably happens. And the deeper they read into the summer, less opportunity there will be to forget at the end. Ideally, they forget nothing and in fact build skills over the summer. So just to reinforce, cramming is a strategy for passing a year-end test, but it's not really a strategy for building lasting skills. So really make sure during the spring that your kids read a little bit each day, that they interleave a few different books, maybe many different books, and that those books provide motivation, interest, and identification, so that it's something that these kids want to continue doing in the summer. And then during the summer, I would start by taking your kids' temperature, seeing where their decoding skills are before the summer starts. Make sure you give an assessment that measures decoding specifically. If that's a skill that you're focused on, you can give other tests for other skills, such as comprehension, vocabulary, and so on. And see what you can do to get kids to read a little bit each day over the summer, using books that are at their level in terms of decodability and provide that same level of motivation, interest, and identification. And then you can assess the decoding skills again when summer ends, and you can report back to us whether your kids forgot or whether they actually built skills over the summer.
And in the beginning that I thought was really interesting. You said that kids could actually in the summer advance. Like we all assume that kids are just going to fall behind and we're going to catch them up. But you kind of said if we do 5 different things, we could see movement with kids, right? Just by giving them books. Like we take the pulse of every district we work with. We send them for our packs. We send them packs that are based around the reading level of that child. And then we give them 10 books within a pack that are at that child's reading skills. And oftentimes districts over the summer buy 5 packs. They're like, we want to have one for every week of summer school. We want to send them with many different books. We want that variety. So to me, what I'm hearing, and that's one of the largest messages that I hear from you, is if we send kids home with books that are at the right level or the right skills for that child for them to continue to practice decoding all summer, if we give them variety, if we give them books that they have engagement, and if we start it just a little bit before the summer, it's even better because they'll have gained that habit of using the books. We'll actually see growth. Is that something that we haven't done that study to say that, but based upon your research, you would say that?
Yeah, I mean, there's remarkably little research on how to prevent summer learning loss, but everything we know about how to prevent losses and maintain memories and skills from other literatures suggests that, yeah, if there's varied, interleaved, regular practice, you should actually see losses reduced and perhaps even gains, especially with young kids who are building skills during the school year at such a rapid rate.
I love it. I think it's actually, Paul, I feel like really lucky because you told us this 2 years ago, and we've kept honing our product based upon that. Tracy, I want to go back to like that one slide that you get to kind of just see. The other thing I think was Tracy moves us back in the slide so I can show one of the summer of kind of what a pack looks like, is you talked about building connections too. So talk me through like interleaving when you're actually reading with someone, when you're practicing those skills that are skill-based and you're doing it with someone you love or building that engagement. Does that change any of the outcomes you think along that, knowing that can happen over the summer?
Well, so there are a couple of things that you're talking about here. One is interleaving, which I definitely think is important. And yeah, the other one is trying to integrate it into family life. Right. This is a challenge with a lot of summer programs. Right. So there was a recent study of all the summer programs that happened after COVID. And one issue with them is that attendance was really poor. And the literature on summer programs often shows that you can achieve just as much with a home intervention as you can with a school intervention, in part because attendance at home is excellent. kids are there every day. So if you do something, you've talked to me a little bit, maybe you can talk now about some of the things that you do to encourage parental engagement over the summer in certain districts.
I love this. This is actually like you told us this, but 2 years ago you were like, kids aren't going to summer programs. They don't want to go, and it's hurting. And districts know this, and districts are starting to not even have money for summer programming to think about it. So they're starting to purchase our take-home decodable packs for the summer. They're sending kids home with 2 to 3 packs, sometimes 5, sometimes even 7. They do them 1 to 2 weeks before the year's over to kind of build those habits, just like you talked about. They send us the reading data. We make sure kids get 10 books within a pack that are exactly at their reading skills they need to work on. And Paul, you told me about engagement. So we literally, every one of these packs has a child's name on it because that's special, it's sweet. They have to literally open it up. The nice part about that when they're sending them multiple packs for the summer is that then they have something to like do each week, right? You don't get all of it in one spot. You can like literally space it out as a parent and get kids doing that over the summer. And then we added in a writing page because a huge part also that we heard from you was that practice of reading and writing together is going to push kids even further, right? Again, building those skills and kind of doing them together. When I presented as the commissioner of education in Texas, he said that's our number one thing that is the greatest strength of our product is that kids are reading and writing together. And then we know that over the summer, kids are not always getting instruction, right? So we added in that video that when you take home your packs, you can watch a phonics lesson in Spanish and English on the back of every pack to kind of learn how to that phonics. You don't forget it. So, but talk me through that. Like, what's your take on us being so lucky to add these phonics videos through to every one of them?
Yeah, that's Terry, isn't it? I feel like she should talk about this, but
That's Terry. It is Terry. It is.
It is me. And one of the things that I think is so powerful about this connection is really where we're beginning to see that connection that you were talking about, that parent engagement, because now we've got kids who are sitting down with their parents and their parents have the confidence and they have the ability and the knowledge to now click the QR code, learn with their children, and then be able to support their students as they read through their books. And that becomes such a powerful tool to really solidify what's taking place in the classroom and bridging it to what they're doing in the home.
I just want to clarify, because I know there are people from lots of districts. If your district has a robust summer learning program, and it's 11 weeks long and kids are attending every day and loving it and learning a ton, I certainly wouldn't say you should cancel that. But if you're struggling to get kids to attend, or your summer program has been whittled down to 3 weeks because of funding issues or whatever, it's important to realize that you're not alone and that a lot of districts struggle with getting kids to come, and that there are home-based interventions you can do that under some circumstances can be as effective.
And I think that that's a great point, and I'm not to belabor the point, but the great point in that is that as a parent, when I know what's taking place at the summer school or at the program, it also provides me with the motivation to now make sure that they show up, right? Because we know that there's actually something productive happening there. So now we're motivated. We're working together as a team of parents and teachers together to make sure that our students receive what they need.
I think, Paul, we designed this in Spanish too. So we have our take-home packs in Spanish as well, because we know that districts are really struggling of like, how do I support kids over the summer in Spanish? So this was an intentionality from us of, if we can create a really great product in English, we also, for equity and for lots of other reasons, wanted to do it in Spanish. I think what you said also is interesting is like, we feel like our product is something that starts in school and ends at home. And that's one of the greatest parts of it is you build your habits, just like you talked about within school, either in summer school or the end of the year, and then you continue it at home. So I think, I don't know what that would, what the research around that would be, but it's almost like the bridge of habit making, I guess. Is that it?
Mm-hmm. I think you told me, Sarah, about some of the work that certain districts do and just checking in with families periodically during the summer to make sure that they're making use of decodable materials. Yeah.
Sometimes they do and sometimes they don't. Like sometimes they just want to know that like kids have it, they have the access, and that's the main thing for them. The other thing I just wanted to kind of share out is we started changing our theory of action too, Paul, about families or districts are desiring in such a deep level family engagement at a high level. Like they want to engage families, they want to partner with families. So we started creating, I don't know if I can do it here. Let's see. Oh, there, she's got me. We started making videos with superintendents that go on the backpacks because what they really want to do is send kids home into the summer with the message of reading, with the message of that. So all of our backpacks now have a QR code that you can scan and watch a video from the superintendent. So here's the superintendent of Cincinnati when she sent kids home with both English books and Spanish books for her multilingual learners.
Hello, families of our ELL students. I am Superintendent Irenetta Wright.
And I'm Board President Ben Lindy. We are so excited to share how together we can make this summer a summer of reading.
There is a lot of research about the science of reading, and the best thing you can do as a family is read together.
To help many of our families and students, our team will be visiting neighborhoods this summer to distribute books.
Students will receive a backpack of decodable books by Just Right Reader, and they will be able to practice reading in English and Spanish all summer long. Every time your child reads one of their books, it keeps their phonics skills strong so they're ready for the year ahead.
These books are fun, colorful, and tell stories that get kids excited to read and then keep reading.
Plus, every book comes with a memorable video that teaches a phonics skill. Just scan the QR code on the back of the book to watch the video in English or Spanish.
Have your child add their name on their Just Right Reader backpack, fill it with their books, and bring the power of reading everywhere they go.
Every bit of reading counts, and we can't wait to hear about your child's favorite books. Be sure to share your reading adventures on social media with the hashtag Cincinnati Readers. Enjoy and happy reading.
I think the most beautiful part about this that Irenetta did, or the superintendent from Cincinnati, was she made a connection before kids went for the summer. So a little bit of what you're talking about of that starting in spring and continuing over the summer. I just love it. I think it's brilliant. And I love that there's research behind that habit building for families and for kids. The other thing I just want to say, Paul, is that we can't wait to keep hearing all of your research and adding it into our product. So I can't wait for next summer. You're going to tell me something more. We're going to change the product even more because for us, this is always about like keeping kids reading and getting them reading more and more. So we actually, over winter break, you're not going to believe this, we gave away 2 million books to families all around just to get kids reading. And we're probably going to give 4 million books for any district that wants it right now, anywhere in the country. We are doing a summer skill review. And so depending on the size of the districts, we're partnering with districts to like just start them off on their summer reading adventure with skill reviews. So they should email one of our team at Decodables at Just Right Reader. And for us, you know, I'm just a past principal who's living her best life helping kids learn to read. So, and like I get to talk to people like you and learn what we should do even better.
The scale you're at now, distributing millions of books, it should be possible actually to do research on Just Right Reading.
All right, Paul. All right, Paul. We'll bring you in. We will do a study together. I think it's time. Yeah, we can't wait. All right, so Tracy, bring me back to that slide. That's like the 5 things. So to summarize, Paul, before we head off, if you are someone who's thinking about how to not just have learning loss over the summer, but instead have learning gains, Tracy made us a slide that I think is important and powerful to think about. The 5 things that, based on the research, you would say is building habits in the spring, the habits you want kids doing before the summer, like taking that practice. Go ahead, tell me, is there anything you want to say about that?
I'm sorry, are you asking Tracy?
No, I was asking you, Paul. It sounds like the 5 things, based on to summarize kind of what you're talking about, the habits you want to have in the spring that will guide you into the summer. So reading books every day is part of those habits that we want to have happen in the spring with schools and continue in the summer.
Yeah, I think this is a great summary. I would just add, I mean, what you just said every day, and that implies the spacing principle that, reading a little bit every day is better than having a big reading block once a week. And yeah, these are all great principles: habits, variation, interleaving, engagement, and connections.
Yeah. We feel very lucky to be able to do it all with our take-home pack. So, Paul, till we bring you back in next summer to share all of your most fabulous, newest research, we're super excited.
Thanks. It's always great to be here.
Now, before we let you go, before we log off, this was such a great conversation. This was a great opportunity for us to learn together. We do have some questions in the chat, in the Q&A. So Paul, if you don't mind, if we take the questions, of course, if any of you who are here in the audience have questions, please be sure to drop them in the Q&A, and we'll make sure that Paul or even Sarah can answer the questions for us. The question is there an assessment you would suggest to use for OST providers? That's one of the questions.
I think it's summer school providers.
Summer school providers. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's a difficult question to answer. There are lots of assessments available, including Renaissance, Dibbles, and WEA. I'm not sure I would endorse just one, but there are definitely lots of options.
Okay.
You'd probably suggest them to do something that they were using in the school district, I'm guessing, to like keep that validity, right?
For comparability, yeah, that'd be great for research too.
Yes. We've been doing a lot of research on, summer school and what really works for that. And we're seeing that making sure that we have that connection between what the school is doing and what they're doing in summer school, making sure that data is connected and making sure that conversation is continual. And it really is impacting that achievement over the summer. So I think that's a great observation. Are there any other questions? Tracy's in the background getting all of our Q&A. Are there any other questions? I think that might have been the only question, which means that's always a good sign when there's only a couple of questions. That means that you covered it thoroughly and that everybody is good. So there is one additional question. It says, what is the per student cost? This is for you, Sarah. What is the per student cost for the take-home decodables?
So each pack is $35 in both Spanish and English, and they get 10 decodables within a pack, and we encourage people to do as many packs as you can over the summer, right? And I guess if you were listening to what Paul was saying, you'd want to buy 1 to 2 packs to have for the last 2 weeks of school, and then you'd want to send home a couple of packs over the summer. So we encourage people to multiply it by 35, multiply it by the number of kids, and get to keep on reading. It's 10 books a pack.
Yeah, and I would definitely encourage you all to reach out to us on our website. We can make sure that we get someone who can really sit down and figure out the best fit for your program and make sure that we find out how to make this the best partnership between Just Right Reader and your schools and your summer programs to really make the difference. But that's it. That's all of the questions. This has been great. Thank you, Paul. Sarah, I always enjoy sharing space with you. Thank you all for joining us. Thank you for all of the questions and for your engagement. We want you all to know that this is being recorded and we will share it out with you. And remember to keep reading and keep growing and building stronger readers. We are so grateful for all of you, and we'll see you guys next time. Thank you.